Hawaii, the state of clean energy, is brought to you by the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, College of Social Sciences, University of Hawaii at Manoa.
Our island home is uniquely endowed with a diversity of natural resources, the sun, ocean, wind, and the energy from the depths of our ina. Our environment holds a promise for energy independence, but our journey is unprecedented. There's really no roadmap, only a vision to keep in focus as we shed our old ways and embrace new thinking and behavior. There will be setbacks and compromise. Most agree the ultimate reward will be worth it. This kind of transformational change will not come easy.
The Energy Policy Forum's Clean Energy Day is important to us and to you to identify the sea changes, see where we are, remember where we're going, and maybe sometimes adjust our course. We're here for a reality check. We want our speakers to be candid. We insist that our speakers be candid, tell us the good and the bad too. We want them to tell us what we've achieved, for better or worse.
And there's a very different set of activities on the horizon for all of us, and I think we're better off sort of focused forward to what I think is a phenomenal set of things that we could achieve as a community. I think we have kind of hit the low-hanging fruit, folks, so everything gets harder from here on out. At some point, we have to stop saying discussing hard problems means you're against renewable energy. Give me a break. Hawaii is so far down the path in renewable energy. We need to be able to freely discuss the problems of resources and options and costs in a very open manner.
Our business is being disrupted by all sorts of technological breakthroughs. We have a lot of customers that are looking at ways to get off the grid and stop paying our rates because they're very high. And the thing that we can control is our rates. We're going to have a ton of solar that's going to be online. By 2015, we'll have 50% of our daytime needs met by solar. So that's probably going to be one of the highest, if not the highest, in the world.
Not only do we have different costs of energy during different times of day, which we always had, but now we have multiple providers of that energy. And so it really becomes challenging to figure out how do we work out those economics. Yes, it does have an impact, and yes, the PV owners are costing the non-PV owners. I know that doesn't make me popular with some of my green advocates, but I think we have to have that conversation, and in fact, it's a huge opportunity.
Aloha, I'm Tanya Joaquin. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. You just heard candid comments from this year's Clean Energy Day conference. Garden Isle officials say Kauai is on track to overachieve the goals of the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative. KIUC representatives believe Kauai will be at a rate of 50% renewables for electricity generation by 2023. It was also reported Hawaii Island uses 45% renewables to generate electricity, all coming from the Big Island. Officials from HELCO said the island could be at a rate of 70%. According to Hawaiian Electric, with the renewable output from Maui and Hawaii counties, our overall potential for producing electricity from renewable sources exceeds our statewide demand. Are we hitting our incremental goals per the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative? For producing electricity from renewables, our utilities statewide are on track. We should average 15% when the 2013 data is all in. Tonight we'll have reports on that progress and look at other areas such as transportation, which uses most of the 44 million barrels of oil imported each year. Many believe progress in the transportation sector has been disappointing. And if you're considering a new PV system for your home, don't miss our next segment. We'll look into the debate about who should be paying to upgrade the utility grid to accommodate homes and businesses with photovoltaic. We'll be right back.
Hawaiian Electric has a new rule for families planning to install solar panels. The company says it'll speed things up, but contractors tell us it's really a speed bump to help the company catch up on its backlog. Jim Mendoza has both sides.
Hiko sums up its policy change in just 4 words: call before you install. The policy change is found on Hawaiian Electric's webpage under the heading Net Energy Metering. The letter says customers and contractors must call Hiko before signing a contract to install or expand a photovoltaic solar system.
I was very shocked.
Ryan Sumie sets up sales for Stealth Solar Hawaii. He says the change will cripple contractors by adding unnecessary delays.
Right now we're averaging about 5 weeks And now I can't promise my customers how fast I can get a system up for them.
We asked Scott Hsu from Hawaiian Electric about the allegation that Hawaii's largest utility company is intentionally trying to slow down PV installations. And is HECO losing money as more people turn to solar?
We are leading the country in terms of how many customers of ours have installed solar. We have steadily pushed out the trigger points for when we would require customers to pay for studies. We are far ahead of the nation in terms of trying to figure out the technical mitigation measures to keep allowing more rooftop solar to come on board. One way that I would answer that is where we are today in terms of now having to do more studies and having to look for upgrades is precisely because we've been so far ahead of everybody else in leading the way to allow people to put PV. We're not stopping, we're still pushing forward, we're going to keep pushing forward. And yes, as you push forward, things will be more expensive. The other way I answer that is, at Hawaiian Electric a number of years ago, our PUC approved what's called decoupling, sales decoupling. So we no longer make profit based on how much electricity we sell. We're pretty much agnostic to that. So as people want to keep installing solar, it all starts to become what about the technical safety issues, reliability issues. By and large, this is not about us trying to put barriers in front of solar.
Solar contractors say their customers were completely caught off guard and still unsure about what happens when and what these grid studies and upgrades may cost.
They've made these significant commitments financially, and they got stuck. And they found out they might have to wait, they might have to pay for upgrades, they really didn't know, and it was really a disaster. So now, if they can provide the appropriate documents by the end of the year, they're grandfathered in, so that's good. But then it depends. If they're on a circuit that's green, that's under 50% of the minimum daytime load, they're probably going to be able to install right now, so that's really good. But if they're on a circuit that is deemed to be a red circuit, that is, it's 100% or more of that minimum daytime load, which is the new metric that they're using, then the utility needs to go and actually measure on that circuit.
We're looking at a number of different factors. As you add more and more of these PV systems, are you starting to get into situations where there may be extra electricity that's actually generated in the neighborhood, more so than what is being used in that neighborhood? And is that extra electricity now flowing backward into our substation? And if that is the case, then what protective devices do we need to make sure that we don't have voltage spikes? That's just an example.
Right now, on everybody's electric bill, if you look down closely, there's all those different charges, and there's one that says PBF, it's the public benefit fee. And that is I think it's 3% now, I'm not sure. That goes to Hawaii Energy, and it pays for efficiency for Hawaii. So that goes for solar hot water, lighting upgrades, chiller upgrades in apartment buildings, all kinds of different ways that we can save electricity through efficiency. And so the Commission deemed so many years ago that it made sense, that it benefited all ratepayers if some ratepayers are efficient, you know? We have the standard, yet now they're saying, well, but if a rooftop solar is using less electricity, they're the only ones who are benefiting. And why the difference?
According to Scott Hsu, the rule covering this chargeback to a customer is covered by an interconnection tariff approved years ago by the Public Utilities Commission.
What's embedded in that rule is the requirement that if you are a customer and you want to install a PV system or any type of a distributed generation system, normally you would pay for your study. And if there are upgrades that are triggered on the electric company side, then you would also pay for those upgrades. So those requirements are part of our interconnection rule that has been approved by the PUC. Basically, it follows a long-standing regulatory principle that is, if a customer is causing costs on the electric utility system and the benefits of those upgrades are all flowing to that customer, then the customer pays for those upgrades. Basically, we're trying to be as fair as we can. So when people say, how come Hawaiian Electric doesn't pay for the upgrade? Should it be fair that your neighbor who has no PV system has to help pay the bill of an upgrade that we have to do to the electric system to accommodate your PV system?
Stu also said Hawaiian Electric will conduct 4 major grid studies paid for by the company, not ratepayers, and the studies will focus on managing the increased levels of solar on HECO's grids. Colebrook said the solar contractors will continue to work with Hawaiian Electric to expedite the installation process for customers, as well as collaborate on other interconnection issues. Stay with us to learn about your on-bill opportunity to get some real relief from the cost of electricity. We'll be right back. If you thought owning a PV system or solar water heater, even a heat pump would be great, but you just can't afford it, this could be the year things change for any homeowner, renter, or small business operator who receives an electric bill.
It's going to be a potential game changer, but we want to do it right.
The Forbes headline read why Hawaii just became an even better market for solar. The article published this past July said, already one of the most attractive markets for solar in the United States, Hawaii recently made it easier for underserved residents to invest in clean energy. You'll hear a lot about on-bill programs. Phase 1 of this new opportunity is called OBF, or On-Bill Financing. The seed money will come from the Public Benefit Fund, which all ratepayers have paid into for years. As these programs broaden to include OBR, or on-bill repayment, the funding will come from third-party investors. The debt is tied to your electric meter, not you. And your monthly on-bill payment will be the same or less than your regular monthly electric bill.
Then there are several other opportunities out there, including one that you may have heard about that was introduced in the last legislative session. It's called the GEMS program, and it's being run by the State Energy Office at DBED. And they are going to use some of the PBF money as seed money to backstop bond issuance that would be bringing in money that could be used for renewable energy and for energy conservation and efficiency. So that program has to be merged with the on-bill financing that the Public Utilities Commission has been working on for the last 2 years, as I said. How that all comes out in the end is probably just going to be multiple ways, depending on who you are and what you want. You will have multiple choices as to how you go about it. But the big change is going to be a lot more people will be able to take part in the renewable energy revolution.
While it looks like there are exciting new developments in renewable energy generation for electricity, many think there's not enough progress in this sector that consumes by far the most imported oil. In 2013, we imported 44 million barrels of petroleum, used 1.8 billion gallons, and more than half of that was for transportation. We should have the most control over ground transportation, where we use 500 million gallons of petroleum a year. About 28% of all the oil we import goes in a vehicle's gas tank. The goal is to cut consumption 70% during the next 16 years. Who's responsible for getting that done, and is it a realistic goal?
But transportation is complex, and you can tell by the discussion this morning, could you not, that when we talk about energy and transportation, people talk about either energy or transportation, but they don't put it together very well.
What I would like to share with you is some feel for the fact that DOT is doing something, and they aren't here maybe because they always feel like they're getting beaten up. Maybe no one likes being in a position of being held accountable for things that they don't feel they have 100% control over.
Transportation is not controlled by one sort of centralized entity. It's a little more challenging. It involves personal decisions by a distributed network of individuals. So one of the things that I say in Hawaii, historically, the passenger vehicle market has been about 50,000 vehicles a year. And so individual consumers, 50,000 a year in Hawaii, make a choice about whether that energy aspect is important to them.
Ken Kelly spent 3 years in Hawaii working with our state energy office at DBED. He points to successes so far, getting automobile manufacturers to bring electric vehicles to such a small marketplace. Kelly also sees opportunity for transit-oriented development linked to the future rail system on Oahu, where multiple modes of transportation come together.
What I'd like to see happen in Hawaii is I'd like to see a commitment on the level of transportation is included under HCEI. But what is it that can be achieved? What's achievable, and how do we go about achieving it? Bring the most creative minds together and getting serious about the transportation question. I think it could make a real difference.
What do you think? Can we really cut our consumption by 300 million gallons of gasoline a year? Could you reduce your trips to the pump by 70%? Is the state doing enough to get us to this goal? You can go to the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum website and let us know what you think. We'll be right back. He's the well-respected expert who heads up the very hands-on natural energy think tank at UH Manoa. He's a local boy still living in Hawaii, but he travels the world consulting clients on the global oil and natural gas markets. And he's got your back, representing the best interest of Hawaii consumers in some very complex, unprecedented regulatory decisions that impact all of us. We will close tonight's program hearing from these three people. They're part of a very knowledgeable, very dedicated team of men and women working behind the scenes to help Hawaii reach its potential for energy independence. On behalf of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum and all of us at Hawaii News Now, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Tanya Joaquin. Aloha.
Electricity rates in Hawaii are so high that we're at the point of ratepayer revolt. Renewable energy seems to be the best solution for Hawaii, but we can't do it at any cost. We can't keep putting this on the backs of ratepayers. We're concerned not only for the solar PV customer, but we're also concerned about the customer who, for whatever reason, cannot put solar PV on their roof. It's in the consumer's interest to have a 200 megawatt wind farm on Maui, cable to Oahu. So even when you include the cost of the cable, the potential cost of the cable, the cost of the wind farm, our analysis shows that it would be a net benefit to consumers. The concern is that we'll lose our desire to move to renewable energy. And that potential is there. But if we continue to push forward with renewable energy, I think LNG could be that true bridge. 30 years in private practice, the last 3 years as the consumer advocate. This is the most difficult, most challenging thing I've ever undertaken. These issues are incredibly complex. I understand consumers are upset.
So when you're talking about oil, it's kind of like gold, for example. It's an internationally traded commodity. In the past, we've had geopolitical issues that have curbed supply and pushed up the price, or we had China booming, demand was going strong. So these two pressures really put a lot of pressure on the oil price. But since then, things have stabilized quite a bit. So when you add this all up together, we see oil prices not just being stable, but actually declining to maybe a $80 range as a floor sometime over the next 4 or 5 years from about $110 a barrel nowadays. Even if oil dropped to $20 a barrel, you would still want to pursue different alternative paths such as HCEI plans, renewables, and potentially even natural gas. You don't want to rely on one fuel for your energy mix, because if anything happens to that, obviously it's going to have a big impact. So in Hawaii's case, it would be the shipping and the storage and regasification that would cost quite a bit. So I mean, it really depends. How much does it cost? It could be a couple $100 million, it could be as high as several $100 million. But it's good to keep in context that Hawaii's energy oil import bill is over $6 billion a year. So even if we have this upstream cost, this is infrastructure that'll last for 20 years. If we're able to save 20% on our fuel bill, it'll pay for itself relatively quickly. So I think the leadership, while lacking a bit in the past, has gotten better. You're seeing it now being driven from the governor's office and through DBED itself. That doesn't mean more can't be done, and more isn't being done as we speak. So now there is a pretty strong push, particularly from the relevant agencies, to really try and get the various stakeholders together.
It's a tax that affects about half of the barrels that come into the state. And the intention was that it would be split between some emergency response for environmental response, energy projects or energy development, and ag, more energy and ag sustainability than development. Unfortunately, what's happened since its inception is a significant fraction of what was allocated either for energy or for ag has been put in the general fund. Our project on Molokai is moving forward. We had community meetings and are now in the process of signing an agreement with Maui Electric to basically put a battery in that we hope is going to take care of a good bit of the interruptions to service on Molokai. That's the first step, and then beyond that try to look at how can we then integrate more renewables into the grid. So that actually should at least improve quality of service. My personal view is, this cable, whether you want to say it's 5 years or 8 years or 10 years, it's going to be a substantial period of time before it's completed. We're going to see continuing development of PV, continuing development of other renewables. So in this set of studies, we're trying to look at higher levels of penetration of renewables on the islands as they are now, and then compare that to what happens if we put a cable in to make sure the value is still there and really try to determine that value. Well, I think one of the differences from where we were a few years ago is, a wind developer can come in and propose a several tens or 100 megawatt project. Solar can come in and propose a project. You know what the costs are going to be. You know what the implications are going to be. We're now, both with the cable and LNG, at some really major decision points. The investments are going to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars, not the tens of millions of dollars. It's going to be more than just a simple PPA. So these are decisions we're going to live with for a long time. So, we need to make sure they're right.
Hawaii, the state of clean energy, is brought to you by the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, College of Social Sciences, University of Hawaii at Manoa.